thank you to the organizers of TEDxSRCC. It's a great honor, a great privilege to be part of this important event that I believe you've been organizing annually with several important, domain experts and players from all across the industry and different fields. So a very important and interesting topic that you've chosen, beyond the prism, and how life takes us into different shapes, how there's a single story syndrome as well. There's a single perspective that is given to us all across life, but life is about different colors as well. Everything isn't in black and white. But since we are talking in Delhi University today, and that too in SRCC, I will begin by talking about my days in Delhi University. I was a student of a college not very far from the SRCC. I was part of Ramjas College, and I studied political science from there. But that wasn't it. My activism journey began from Delhi University immediately in 2006 after I left school. And this was an accident in my life. Most of my schooling days, I was a very shy kid. I didn't believe in these colors that we are talking about. I was very shy. I was very reserved. I did not speak with people very much. I was engrossed in my own world. But something happened in 2006 and life turned, life changed. And I joined activism. It was merely an accident in my life. I don't know, many of you must have heard of this case of Priyadarshini Mattoo, a law faculty student who was raped and murdered. And, I came across this case. This has happened long back, more than 10 years ago, when I was in Delhi University in 2006, but there was no ray of hope of justice. So I began a campaign, even though, I'm not saying that I was an activist and, I thought of something big. I was a below average student. I had nothing better to do. So perhaps I decided to do this. And I started this campaign for justice for Priyadarshini Mattoo. And that led to a huge moment, not just in Delhi University, but all across India, and became a benchmark case in many ways. And thereafter, you had several other cases, including Jessica Lal, Nitish Katara, Aman Kachru, and several others, justice movements that began in the country. But on a lighter note, how did my story begin with Delhi University and SRCC is when, I was invited by my girlfriend to SRCC, and I was part of the audience sitting there when a theater annual event was underway. I think this was roughly between 2006 and 2007. And while I was sitting in the audience and waiting for the performance to begin, somehow the organizers, both the teachers, faculty, and the students came to me. I was sitting behind and said that, are you Mr. Kaul? And I said, I am Mr. Kaul. I'm guilty of being Mr. Kaul. And he said, and the teachers and the students said that, sir, we would like to invite you as the chief guest of this event. And I was like, boss, I'm myself a student, perhaps a first year or second year student of Delhi University. And, it's not my place to be a judge or a chief guest there. So they said, no, you have to be there, because our chief guest, who was supposed to be there, a theater personality, did not end up there. And the only person that we can think of is you, because you appear on television every day as an activist and you're very popular and known. But I somehow did not agree. I was very hesitant, and somehow they still dragged me and made me sit on the front row. Well, that's another thing that my girlfriend much later asked me, why were you sitting in the front row with the principal and all others during that event? But that began my relationship with SRCC and Delhi University back then. And my activism career, or should I really say career, because it was a voluntary exercise at that point in time for 2 or 3 years, really began. Also, what happened during that time was, our several protests that we organized. We organized various protests, again, not in Delhi University alone, but all across India and all across the country on different issues, including that of Priyadarshini Mattoo, anti-caste-based reservation, because we believed at that particular time that there should be economic, reservation for the economically weaker sections of the society, and that's what mattered, and there should be a rethink on the entire reservation policy. And I remember times when I was arrested, both in Delhi University and other places, and all through that road through arts faculty, to St. Stephen's and Hindu and all other colleges. I used to run and police used to chase me and get arrested during that time. So again, these are those days when there was no social media that I'm talking about. But my life, because we are talking about prism, we are going to talk about beyond the prism. My life began many years back in Kashmir when I was born, just when terrorism began in Kashmir. And my life began when my family, when I was just 9 months old, had to put me in a cloth and take me to a shelter, which was a few hundred kilometers away in Jammu. And we lost everything because terrorists burned our house in Kashmir, and all our ancestral properties, everything was lost. And in Jammu, we began life again from a camp-like situation, like a refugee camp, and there we began our life. And it was a small room where 16 people were sitting, and we spent a few months there. And but because my father perhaps could think beyond the prism and had the vision at that time, even though he had no money, he had no clarity where life was taking him because he had lost everything, he moved to Delhi. And he chose to struggle. He chose to challenge himself. Even though he met hemorrhage, he lost vision in his one eye. He couldn't see. Again, as I said, he had lost everything in Kashmir, his business, his money, his property, his home. But beyond that, his memories of childhood, of being in Kashmir all those years. But he had that perspective, he had that will in him to perhaps challenge himself and rethink and recalibrate himself and perhaps start life from scratch. And never did he make me realize that we had such problems in our life. But still, he continued with this zeal within him to perhaps live again, to start life again and achieve something. So not only did he achieve, but he inculcated the same values with me of having integrity, having courage of conviction in life, being honest, and hard work, because there's no alternative to hard work in life. And that goes for all. You might be the poorest of poor, you might be the richest of rich. No matter where you are in life, there's no alternative to hard work. Yesterday I was invited by an NGO to Basti, Sanjay Basti in central Delhi's Chanakyapuri area, a slum area where, I had an interaction with students. And many of those students had these, diamond-like eyes, so much of hope and expectation, such vision in their lives, but also perhaps some sense of, disparity. Because when I left there and I moved to my apartment in Noida, on the way I saw these glass, towers, and it made me think of the disparity in the society, of how the children are same, the humans are same, the vision perhaps is the same, the strength, the will, the energy is the same, but still there is such disparity in the society. But as I said, if you have the ethics, morals, if you have the integrity, then you can turn mountains. You can certainly achieve big in life. To a certain extent, that happened to me as well. A person uh, who hadn't even dreamed of achieving so big in life, who had clearly no vision, because I was a shy kid most of my life. Even though my parents had inculcated the values in me, I became a journalist, and it was a childhood dream to become a journalist at that particular time. And I tried to strive hard. And one thing that I tell people jokingly is that the same police or the CRPF which arrested me back 16 years ago or 17 years ago now invites me uh, in the CRPF Academy of India, or the Internal Security Academy of India under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they ask me to address their senior officers on human rights, on conflict, on media management, on how to respond in a conflict situation. So you can change the tide, you can change everything if you have that kind of a sense and belief. And even though my days in Delhi University began with activism, with the Priyadarshini Mattoo case, with the anti-caste-based reservation campaign, later I also formed a group called Roots in Kashmir and started activism around the rights of Kashmiri Pandits, those who had suffered genocide and ethnic cleansing in Kashmir. Uh, much later, I joined journalism, initially from the print media and then to the electronic media. And now I focus mostly spending my time making documentaries. So my point, my friends, is that never lose hope. And I repeat, often and again, that there's no alternative to hard work in life. I'm talking about this era when I was involved in activism, when there was no social media, when there was no Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, or Twitter. Now today news breaks first on Twitter, and thereafter it comes on television or on your mobile screens. There was no consumption of news at that particular time on your mobile screens. Mobiles were just arriving in a big way during that time. So have that sense of belief within you, and if you strive hard, if you think different, and you can certainly change things. Another important aspect that thinking beyond the prism, one of the challenges that we suffer today is disinformation and misinformation. So as students of Delhi University, one of the finest universities in Asia, I would tell you to be careful about that. Don't get completely zapped in this syndrome of a single story, because every story has different perspectives. And think about that. Try to be inquisitive and know more about things, research better, so that you can come to your own conclusion. And that comes to mind on each and every aspect. We saw what happened recently in Jahangirpuri in Delhi. We see news every day on different aspects that happen. So never go by, even though I'm a journalist, I tell you that never go by what you see on your TV screens, on your mobile sets. Always try to research yourself and understand, what really is behind this. What is the reality? What actually has happened? So I think life has a lot of colors, but you will only see those colors when you strive hard and you actually go that extra mile and achieve something. So I think I'll try and pause here. And if any of my friends have any questions, I would be happy to answer. And just end here by saying that I'm very happy again, even though I did not really get an opportunity to go back to Delhi University after my years there when I studied political science in Ramjas College. But it's a great honor to be at SRCC, one of the finest colleges in Delhi University, and in fact, one of the finest colleges in India. And